Humanity once lived across many star systems. Their colonies were bright, growing, and full of ambition. For a long time, humans believed they had earned a place among the great civilizations of the galaxy. But the alien coalition, a group of old and powerful species, saw something dangerous inside the human spirit. They thought humans were too bold, too fast to grow, and too willing to take risks. The coalition feared that one day humans would challenge their ancient order. So they made a choice that changed everything. The exile was not a warning. It was a sentence. Alien fleets arrived without mercy. Their ships were dark, silent, and overwhelming. Human worlds could not defend themselves. In a single week, humanity's presence in the core systems was erased. Only a small fleet escaped destruction. This fleet was led by Captain Aaron Blake, a man known for calm thinking even when danger surrounded him. He guided the remaining ships away from the burning colonies and into the vast, empty outer regions of the galaxy. Lily Monroe, his second-in-command, stayed by his side throughout every hour of that terrible week. She watched entire planets fall behind them. She listened to the final calls from civilians who never made it out. Even when she felt her voice break, she helped Aaron keep the fleet together. They had no map, no allies, and no hope except to keep moving. The surviving humans did not know what waited for them in the outer regions. Many feared they would not last long. Their ships were damaged, supplies were low, and many families had been separated during the chaos. Every day felt heavier than the one before. People whispered that the coalition would come again to finish the job. But Aaron refused to let fear destroy what remained of them. He gathered the ship commanders and told them something simple. As long as they were alive, humanity still had a chance. They traveled for months. Their engines were pushed far beyond safe limits. Some ships broke down and had to be pulled by others. When they finally reached a group of empty worlds on the galaxy's edge, there was no celebration. People were too tired to cheer, too shaken to feel joy. But they had survived, and that was enough. The first settlements began on a cold, rocky planet that had no name. It was a rough place with storms that lasted for days and land that cracked under the fierce winds. But it was safe from the coalition, and that made it precious. The early years in exile were the hardest humanity had ever faced. Many died in the first winter alone. Food was scarce, and there were no advanced machines left to help them. The coalition had taken or destroyed nearly everything. The survivors had only their hands, their memories, and a few tools that still worked. Aaron and Lily spent every day helping wherever they could. They carried supplies, fixed broken shelters, and shared whatever food they had. Their example kept people moving even when hope felt small. Despite the harsh conditions, the colonies slowly began to grow. Children were born. Farmers found ways to make crops survive in the weak soil. Engineers rebuilt machines from scraps and old blueprints. Humanity learned to live in the cold, in the darkness, and far from the shining worlds they once called home. Life was hard, simple, and quiet, but silence can shape people in deep ways. With no help coming from anywhere, humans grew stronger. Their bodies adapted to the rough environment. Their minds grew sharp from solving problems with limited tools. They stopped thinking of themselves as victims of exile and began to think of themselves as survivors. Stories of the old worlds became lessons rather than memories of loss. Children grew up hearing how their ancestors had been pushed out of the galaxy's heart. They listened with wide eyes as elders spoke of the day flames rose across the sky and humanity fled into darkness. These stories did not make them fearful. They made them determined. Captain Aaron Blake often walked through the settlements at night. He would look up at the stars, knowing that somewhere out there, the coalition still ruled the systems humanity once inhabited. Lily sometimes joined him. She understood the look on his face without him saying a word. It was the look of a man who had not forgotten what was taken. One night, Aaron said quietly, "We will return one day, maybe not us, maybe those who come after. But humanity will not stay silent forever." He did not raise his voice. He did not shout. He simply spoke the truth he carried inside him. Humanity had been exiled, but the exile had changed them. It made them harder to break. It made their spirit burn brighter, not dimmer. In the cold and far-off lands where the coalition had sent them to die, humans learned to survive with nothing. And something new began to form in the darkness, an ember, a quiet, patient spark. It waited for the day when humanity would rise again and face the stars they had been forced to abandon. The years after the exile were quiet, but it was not a peaceful kind of quiet. It was the silence of a people trying to hold on. The settlements on the cold, distant planets grew slowly. Life was hard, and every new morning came with its own struggle. Yet humans continued, step by step, building a future out of scraps and memory. Generations passed. Children who had never seen Earth or the old colonies grew up under dim suns. They learned to walk on uneven ground and breathe thin air. They listened to stories of places filled with light, warmth, and endless fields, but those stories felt almost like myths. For them, the outer edge of the galaxy was the only home they knew. Even so, something strong took shape in these young people. They learned from the hardships around them. They grew up with a sense of purpose, as if they carried the weight of lost worlds on their shoulders. They were taught that humanity had once stood among the great powers of the galaxy. They were also taught that one day they might stand there again. Dr. Evan Carter was part of the generation born during the early years of exile. From childhood, he was curious about the machines the first settlers had brought with them. Many of these machines were broken, but Evan spent hours trying to fix them. He wanted to understand how things worked, how humans had once built ships that crossed the stars with ease. When he grew older, he became one of the leading scientists in the colonies. Evan spent countless nights studying old data logs, faded blueprints, and half-working devices. He believed that humanity's future depended on recovering what had been lost. He worked with a small team of engineers and researchers, all of them driven by the same quiet hope. They searched for ways to bring back the technology humans had once used so easily. Life in the colonies was not only about research and rebuilding. People created new traditions. They celebrated the passing of seasons on their rough planets. They shared meals made from the few crops that grew in the harsh soil. They built small schools where children learned history, survival skills, and the values their parents and grandparents held dear. The exile had taken much from them, but it could not take their will to keep living. Even though the settlements grew, there were always reminders of what had been lost. Some nights, the elders would gather everyone and tell stories about the exile. They spoke of the sudden attack, the burning skies, and the desperate escape. These stories were painful, but they were also important. They kept the memory of the old worlds alive and reminded the younger generations of why their people lived in distant darkness. Captain Aaron Blake grew older, but he continued to be a symbol of calm strength. People respected him not only because he had led them to safety, but also because he never stopped working for the future of humanity. He walked among the settlements, spoke with families, and made sure no one felt forgotten. Lily Monroe stayed close to him, also becoming a leader respected by many. Her firm voice and clear thinking helped maintain order and unity. The silence of the outer regions was deep. There were no visitors, no trade routes, no messages from the wider galaxy. The coalition had cut humanity away from everything. Out here, humans were alone. But this loneliness shaped them. It made them patient. It made them careful. It gave them time to reflect on who they were and who they wanted to become. Some people believed the coalition would someday come again, searching for any surviving humans. Others believed the coalition had already forgotten about them. No one truly knew, and the uncertainty hung in the air like a cold mist. Many nights, people looked up at the sky, wondering what moved among the distant stars. Despite all of this, progress slowly appeared. Engineers learned how to build stronger shelters. Farmers learned which crops could survive the harsh winds. Hunters brought back food from the strange creatures roaming the wild lands. Every year, the settlements grew larger. New towns spread across valleys and plateaus. Humanity was shaping the edge of the galaxy into something they could call home. Dr. Evan Carter made a breakthrough after many years of work. He discovered a set of ancient human designs stored deep inside one of the damaged data cores. These designs described powerful engines from early human exploration. They were old, dangerous, and long forgotten, but they were something real. Evan believed these engines could help humanity one day travel beyond their exile. When he brought his findings to Aaron and Lily, they listened carefully. They knew humanity was still far from ready to return to the core systems. They lacked the strength, the numbers, and the technology. But this discovery was a spark, a sign that the long silence might not last forever. Humans continued to live quietly on their distant worlds, but now there was a new feeling under the surface. It was small at first, like a whisper. It moved through the colonies like a soft breeze. People felt it without knowing why. It was hope. The silence of exile had shaped humanity into something stronger, something harder to break. And deep within that silence, a quiet promise began to form. One day, humanity would rise again. One day, the stars that once rejected them would hear their voice. Many years passed before anything changed. Humanity lived in the distant dark, far from the core of the galaxy, working hard and surviving each day. People had almost grown used to the silence. They had not forgotten the exile, but they no longer expected anything from the outside world. Life moved slowly, and humans focused only on their own small corner of the stars. But change often arrives quietly, without warning. One morning, the long-range sensors at Outpost 7 detected something drifting in space. It was a faint signal, weak and broken, almost too soft to notice. The outpost crew thought it was just another piece of frozen rock or a dead satellite. But Lieutenant Nora Grant, the officer in charge that day, decided to check it more carefully. She had a habit of paying attention to small details. She believed that even the quietest signs could mean something important. When the image finally came into focus, Nora felt her breath catch in her chest. It was not a rock. It was a ship. A derelict alien scout vessel was slowly turning through the darkness. Its hull cracked and burned. It looked like it had been through a terrible battle. Nora quickly sent a message to the main colony, and within hours a small recovery team arrived, including engineers, soldiers, and Dr. Evan Carter. Evan had spent years studying old human technology, but he had also learned a great deal about alien systems from damaged devices the Coalition had left behind during the exile. When he saw the drifting scout ship, he felt a sudden spark of possibility. The Coalition never came this far out. This meant something had gone wrong. The team carefully pulled the wounded vessel into a hangar. Many of its systems were dead, but some parts still flickered with faint energy. Nora and Evan worked side by side, studying the ship's blackened interior. They found strange burn marks, deep cuts in the metal, and broken weapons that looked as if they had been used until they melted. Something had attacked this ship, something powerful. After hours of searching, they discovered a small data core hidden behind a damaged panel. Most of its memory had been destroyed, but a few fragments remained. Evan connected the core to the colony's old decoding machines. The screens flickered, and slowly pieces of information appeared. At first, it was hard to understand. The data was scrambled, but then shapes formed on the screen, maps, coordinates, and scattered reports from alien commanders. As they studied the fragments, one thing became clear. The Coalition was no longer stable. Nora read one message again and again. It was broken and incomplete, but the meaning was unmistakable. The Coalition was dealing with a new threat, something large and difficult to control. They were losing ships. They were losing territory. Their power was cracking. For the first time in generations, humanity saw a weakness in the Coalition. Evan felt a chill run through him. They had spent their entire lives believing the Coalition was too strong to challenge. But if the Coalition was fighting something else, if they were distracted, then humanity might have a chance. Nora turned to him with a look of excitement and fear. "If they are weak," she said softly, "then maybe one day we can go back." Her words hung in the air like a spark waiting to ignite. When the team brought the information to Aaron Blake, now an older man but still sharp and steady, he listened carefully. He knew better than anyone what the Coalition was capable of. He also knew what humanity had become during their long exile. He gathered the colony leaders and explained what the recovered data meant. "This does not mean we are ready," he said, "but it means the galaxy is changing. And when the galaxy changes, opportunities appear." Lily Monroe, sitting beside him, looked thoughtful. She had spent years helping guide the colonies and understood how fragile their progress still was. But she also saw the fire in the younger generation, the same fire that once carried humanity across the stars. The discovery spread through the colonies within days. People whispered about the damaged ship, the failing coalition, and the possibility of return. It was not loud excitement. It was quiet, cautious hope, the kind that grows slowly after years of silence. In the hangar, the alien scout ship remained dark and broken, but its presence alone had changed everything. It had brought news from a galaxy that humans thought they had lost forever. It carried scars of battles they did not understand, warnings they could not ignore, and hints of chance they had not expected. Evan continued to study the data fragments late into the night. Every piece he uncovered told the same story. The coalition was weaker than before. It was not falling yet, but cracks had started to form. Nora stood beside him, watching the light of the screens reflect on the metal walls. "This could be the start of something," she whispered. Evan nodded. "Yes, the beginning of our way back." The discovery of the damaged alien scout ship changed everything for humanity. The colonies, once quiet and focused only on survival, suddenly filled with new energy. People who had spent their whole lives working in cold fields and simple workshops now spoke about the stars with a different tone. The fear that had once followed every memory of the exile slowly began to fade. Something new was forming inside them. For the first time in generations, humans were not just trying to survive. They were preparing. Dr. Evan Carter shared the broken data core with engineers, mechanics, and scientists across the settlements. The information was incomplete, but it showed just enough to guide their efforts. The alien ship had used a type of energy system humanity had never seen before. Even damaged, it was unlike anything humans had built in the past. Evan believed that if they could understand even a small part of it, they could use it to create something new, something powerful. Colonel Jack Morgan was the first to support the idea. He had once been a young soldier who helped defend the early settlements. Now older, tall, and steady, he was one of the leaders responsible for protecting the colonies. Jack understood that the long silence had made them tough but had also limited their growth. If the coalition was weakening, humanity needed to be ready to move, strike, and defend itself. They could not stay hidden forever. Jack formed a team of the best engineers and scientists across all settlements. They worked inside an old underground bunker built during the first years of exile. The bunker had thick walls, large engines, and enough space to hide their work from anyone who might be watching the edges of space. Evan joined the team, bringing every piece of data he had recovered. They started with small machines. They tested new power systems, tried different materials, and rebuilt engines again and again until they glowed red from heat. Many tests failed. Sometimes machines exploded, sending sparks across the room. Other times they simply died with a quiet hiss. But each failure taught them something. Slowly, the pieces began to fit together. The team found a way to combine old human engineering with the strange alien design. They created energy cores that could burn hotter and longer than anything humans had built before. They designed metal frames that were light yet strong. They crafted weapons that could focus power into narrow beams capable of cutting through almost any material. Jack saw something forming, something that could help humanity stand again. They called the project the Ember Fleet. The name came from the idea that even in darkness, a single ember could grow into something powerful if fed with enough fuel. These new ships were smaller than the giant vessels humans once used, but they were faster, stronger, and far more dangerous. When the first Ember-class ship was completed, it stood inside the underground hangar like a shadow of the future. Its dark metal frame reflected the lights overhead. It looked sharp, focused, and alive. Evan ran his hand along the hull and felt the smooth surface warmed by the new energy core running inside. Nora Grant visited the hangar often. She had been the one to discover the drifting alien ship. Now she watched as the Ember Fleet took shape. She trained new pilots, preparing them for a life far different from the slow days of exile. Many of the young pilots had never seen a real starship before, but they learned quickly. Their hands were steady, and their eyes were clear. They carried the quiet strength of a generation raised in hardship. One of the pilots, Lucas Hayes, showed remarkable skill. He had grown up fixing broken hover bikes and old farm vehicles. Now he moved the Ember-class fighters through training courses with ease. His calm focus made him a natural choice for the first test flight. The day of the flight was quiet. Only the team inside the bunker knew what was happening. Jack stood beside Lucas as the young pilot prepared to enter the ship. "Remember," Jack said, "this ship is more than metal. It's our chance to choose our own future again." Lucas nodded. "I won't fail." The engines powered up with a soft hum. The ship lifted from the ground, rising steadily before shooting forward with incredible speed. It moved like a streak of light, fast and smooth, cutting through the air. People watching held their breath as the ship completed every maneuver perfectly. When Lucas landed, the entire team erupted in cheers. Evan felt his eyes sting with emotion. For the first time since the Exile, he believed humanity could once again stand among the stars. Word of the Ember fleet spread quietly but quickly. People whispered about the new ships, the new power, and the chance to return to the core systems one day. It was not open celebration. Humanity had learned to be careful. But behind every quiet voice was a growing fire. The Ember fleet was still small, still new, still dangerous to operate. But it was real. It was the beginning of humanity's return. And though the coalition did not know it yet, the fire they once tried to extinguish was burning again, stronger than ever. The Ember fleet grew slowly but steadily. Each new ship added strength to a people who had once been pushed into silence. Engineers worked day and night, building stronger frames, brighter engines, and clearer targeting systems. Pilots trained in long sessions, learning to move through empty space with sharp precision. The colonies, once focused only on survival, now watched the sky with a new kind of hope. But hope alone could not change the galaxy. One day, the Ember fleet gathered near the edge of human territory for its first long-distance test. Colonel Jack Morgan wanted to see how far the new ships could travel and how well they performed in deep space. Lucas Hayes, now one of the top pilots, led the group of 5 fighters while 2 small escort ships followed behind them. Nora Grant stood in the command center, monitoring every signal. She felt proud watching the young pilots she had helped train. The journey started smoothly. The ships moved across the dark sky, their engines glowing softly. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. Halfway through the mission, Lucas noticed something strange on his scanner. At first, it looked like a glitch, a small moving shape far away. But the signal grew stronger. Nora saw it at the same moment. "Unknown ship detected," Nora said through the comms. "Approaching fast." Lucas narrowed his eyes and adjusted the sensors. The image became clearer. It was an alien patrol vessel. For a moment, nobody spoke. The Ember fleet had never come face to face with a coalition ship before. The older generation remembered the terror of the Exile, but the younger generation only knew the stories. Now those stories were becoming real. "All ships, hold formation," Lucas said calmly. The alien vessel changed course and moved directly toward them. It was larger than the Ember fighters, covered in sharp metallic plates. Bright lines of energy pulsed along its sides. Clearly, it was built for attack. Nora's voice came through again. "They are scanning us. I think they recognize human energy signatures." Recognition meant danger. Jack's voice broke through the comms from the command center. "Do not fire unless they fire first. But stay ready." The alien vessel's lights brightened. A sudden burst of energy shot from its front, slicing past the Ember fighters. A warning shot. "They know who we are," Lucas said quietly. Another blast fired, this time closer. That was no warning. "Evasive maneuvers," Lucas shouted. The Ember fleet scattered. Bright beams of alien energy shot through the darkness, missing by only meters. Lucas pulled his fighter into a sharp turn, his heart pounding. The Ember ships were fast. Much faster than anything humans had used in the past. But the alien vessel was powerful and experienced. "Permission to return fire?" Lucas asked. Jack hesitated for only a second. "Permission granted." Lucas locked onto the alien vessel and fired the new energy beam. A bright line shot out from his fighter, hitting the alien hull. Sparks exploded across the ship's surface. The alien vessel turned sharply, surprised by the strength of the attack. "Direct hit," Nora reported, her voice filled with shock. Nobody had expected the Ember weapon to work so well. The battle intensified. The alien ship fired again, nearly striking one of the escort ships. But the Ember fighters moved like streaks of light, dodging each attack. Lucas flew close, targeting the weak points he had studied in old Coalition records. One final shot from his fighter struck the alien vessel's engine. The ship shook violently, lights flickering. Then it drifted, powerless, into the darkness. Silence returned. Lucas breathed slowly, trying to calm the rush inside him. "Threat neutralized," he said quietly. In the command center, people stared at the screens in disbelief. For the first time in generations, humans had fought a coalition ship and won. But victory brought fear as well. The alien patrol had attacked without hesitation. And now, the coalition would know that humans still existed. Lucas returned with the others to the colony. When he stepped out of his fighter, people gathered around him, whispering his name. He felt uncomfortable with the attention, but he understood its meaning. Their first real test had come and gone, and humanity had proven they were no longer helpless. That night, Jack and Nora met with Aaron Blake and Lily Monroe. The older leaders listened to every detail of the battle. When Lucas described the final strike, Aaron nodded slowly. "This changes everything," Aaron said. "They will come searching now. The galaxy knows we are not gone." Lily looked at the map of the stars glowing on the wall. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "If they come," she said, "we will be ready." Humanity had returned to the galaxy not with words, but with fire. And the first spark had already been seen. The fleet moved forward through the wide dark of space as if the stars themselves were holding their breath. Captain Nora Dean stood on the command deck of the Arkship Horizon, watching the long stretch of enemy territory grow larger on the screen. She did not speak. No one did. Every person on the bridge felt the weight in the air. Something was coming. Something huge. Evan stayed close by her side, reading the signals coming through the sensors. He tried to keep his voice steady, but there was worry in it. He could not hide it. The scans show a massive energy buildup. It feels like they are preparing for another wall, maybe stronger than the last one. Nora nodded slowly. She expected this. The Council of Worlds had used fear and power for hundreds of years. They would not let humanity return home without a fight. But Nora did not fear them. Not anymore. "Keep watching the pattern," she said quietly. "They always leave a small gap. Something they believe is too small for anyone to see. That is where we will go." Mia moved from console to console, checking the engineering panels. She kept wiping her hands on her uniform, a small nervous habit she had never been able to stop. "If we push the engines any harder, we will burn through the coils. But we can hold out long enough to pass the barrier. After that, the system cooling should reset." "Good," Nora said. "Just keep them steady. We only need one clean break." All around them, the other ships in the fleet kept formation. The older ships, repaired again and again through generations, flew beside the new ones built by human hands on distant worlds. They all moved together, one purpose in every heart: home. The silence broke as Jonah stepped onto the bridge. He looked tired but strong, as if he had been waiting for this moment all his life. "The people on every ship are ready," he said. "They know we are close. They know this might be the hardest part, but no one is turning back." "Good," Nora said again. But this time there was a soft warmth under the word. Jonah walked beside her. "You think this barrier is stronger than the last?" "Yes," she answered. "But so are we." For a while no one moved. The stars drifted past the windows like cold candles floating on water. The enemy energy grew brighter on the screen, forming a great shimmering wall shaped like a dome. It glowed in colors no human had words for. Evan swallowed. "If we touch that thing directly, we will be torn apart in seconds." Which is why we won't touch it, Nora said. She stepped forward. Her voice grew stronger. Everyone listen carefully. The Council believes their technology is perfect. They always believed that about themselves. But nothing made by hands, even alien hands, is perfect. There is always a weak point. Always a place where the Maker believed no harm could reach. That is where we will strike. She tapped commands into the console. A pattern of energy waves appeared, small fluctuations shifting across the wall. There, she said, right along the far edge. A narrow slip of space with lower energy. Too small for a battleship. Too small for any single ship larger than a shuttle. Mia stared. We cannot fit the fleet through that. Not even close. No, Nora said. But we can widen it. If we trigger the gap with the right pulse, the energy alignment will bend for a few seconds. Just long enough. Jonah understood first. You want to hit it with the fire pulse. Everyone fell silent. The fire pulse was powerful, risky, and not fully tested. It was human-made, designed from old science mixed with new discoveries. It was bold, strange, and dangerous. It was everything the Council hated about humanity. Yes, Nora said simply. Mia hesitated. If the pulse shifts outside the range, it could break our own systems. It could shut down the engines completely. I know, Nora answered. She looked at Jonah. She did not need to say anything. He nodded and turned to the controls. The ship began preparing the pulse. Lights dimmed across the bridge. A low hum filled the air, like a giant heart beating. All ships, Nora called. Hold position and prepare for the break. When the gap opens, move through with all power. Do not stop for anything. If a ship slows down, others will shield it. We move together. Always together. The reply came from dozens of voices across the fleet, strong and clear. Jonah lifted his hand over the pulse key. Ready. Do it, Nora said. He pressed the key. A burst of blazing white and red shot out from the horizon, racing across the empty dark toward the glowing wall. It spread like a wide beam of light, pulsing in waves. The barrier shuddered. Evan gasped. It's working. The energy is bending. The gap is expanding. The shimmering wall pulled apart, thin at first, then wider. The space behind it opened like a hidden doorway. Move, Nora shouted. Engines roared. The fleet surged forward. For one heartbeat, the ships slid through the gap with the universe itself shaking around them. Then suddenly they were through. Cheers spread across every channel. Tears filled many eyes. The enemy wall closed behind them, but too late. Humanity had passed the final barrier. They were homeward bound. The fleet slowed as it entered the quiet stretch of space near the old solar borders. It was the closest humanity had been to home in centuries. Yet the silence felt unusual, almost heavy, like the calm before a storm. Captain Nora Dean stood at the front of the bridge, watching the dark horizon. She expected resistance. She expected an attack. The Council of Worlds would not stay silent for long. They had already tried to block humanity with a powerful wall. They would not stop there. Evan checked the sensors again and again, unable to relax. There is something out there, he said softly. I don't know what. No signals, no movement, but something is watching us. Nora nodded. She felt it too. A pressure in the air, a tension that made every sound feel sharper. Mia stepped closer. Engines are stable after the pass. We repaired most of the stress damage, but I suggest we avoid pushing them too hard unless we must. Let us hope we do not have to, Nora replied. But deep inside, she doubted that hope. The fleet drifted forward. Old Earth satellites, silent for generations, appeared as floating metal ghosts. Some had scars from ancient battles. Some looked untouched, frozen in time. Jonah stared at them with quiet awe. Our people made those, he whispered. It is strange to see them after so many years. They are part of our story, Nora said. And this time we write the next chapter. Before anyone could answer, the ship lights dimmed for a moment. A shockwave of unknown energy brushed past the fleet. Evan shouted, "Contact! Something is coming through a fold in space." The screen brightened with a sudden burst of light. A large vessel emerged from the dark. It was shaped like a long shard of crystal, glowing blue along its edges. Mia gasped. Council ship. Nora stood firm. She had expected this. A voice came through every speaker, cold and sharp. Human fleet, you have crossed into restricted space. Turn back now. Any further movement will be answered with force. Jonah muttered under his breath. They followed us fast. They were waiting, Nora said. They always knew we would try again someday. Another council ship appeared. Then another. Then 5 more. Soon the fleet of humanity was surrounded by tall glowing vessels, each humming with power. Evan looked pale. Their numbers are higher than expected. Nora did not let fear enter her voice. Open a channel. A soft tone played. Channel open. She stepped forward. This is Captain Nora Dean of the human fleet. We are returning to our home. We will not turn back. The council's cold voice returned. Humanity was exiled by judgment, by law, by the choice of the United Worlds. Your species was declared a threat due to its violent nature. You were warned never to re-enter. Nora's eyes hardened. We survived. We learned. We grew. And we come not as a threat but as a people wishing to reclaim their place. The voice replied without emotion. Humanity is unpredictable, destructive. Your creations brought ruin to yourselves and nearly to others. We cannot allow your return. Jonah stepped beside Nora. They do not know what we became. They only remember what we were. Mia whispered. They will attack. I can feel it. Nora raised her hand slightly. Hold steady. The council ships formed a tight ring, their blue lights rising like flames. The energy they emitted grew stronger, shaking the panels on the bridge. Evan shouted, They are charging weapons. Nora did not move. All ships, raise shields. Prepare for impact. The first blast hit the horizon with a bright flash. The ship shook hard. Alarms rang everywhere. Mia yelled, Shields at 80%. More blasts followed. The smaller human ships struggled to hold the line. Jonah gripped his seat. If this keeps up, we will lose half the fleet before we even reach orbit. But Nora had been watching the enemy closely. She saw a pattern forming in their attack rhythm. They are not fighting to destroy us, she murmured. They are fighting to stall us. Evan frowned. Why would they do that? Before Nora could answer, a new signal appeared. A massive surge of energy, stronger than any before. Another ship coming through, Evan said. A very large one. The fold in space tore open again. A ship larger than all the others appeared. Its hull was covered in glowing symbols. Its light was blinding. Jonah whispered, Is that one of their ruling vessels? Nora's breath slowed. Yes, she said. The High Sentinel, the most powerful ship in the council. And it had come for them. A new voice echoed across the fleet, deeper and colder than all the others. Humans, your journey ends here. The light from the High Sentinel spread across space like a rising storm. Every human ship felt its force, every hull shaking under the pressure. It was clear to everyone. This was the Council's strongest warning. This was their final line. Captain Nora Dean stood tall on the bridge of the horizon. She did not blink. She did not move. But inside, she felt the weight of all the years, all the generations that had fought to survive the exile. Humanity was closer to home than it had ever been. They would not stop now. Evan stared at the screen with wide eyes. Its energy levels are extreme. If it fires at full power, we cannot block it. Not even close. Mia checked the engine panels again and again, hands shaking slightly. Our systems can hold for a short time, but not long. And if they hit the center of the fleet, the damage will be huge. Jonah stepped forward, voice steady. They want us to retreat. That is what this show of power is for. Nora nodded. Yes, but we are not going back. The deep, cold voice of the High Sentinel echoed through every ship. Humanity ignored exile. Humanity ignored warning. Humanity refuses peace. This is your final chance. Turn away. Leave this system forever. Silence fell across the bridge. Nora finally spoke, her voice calm and strong. We will not turn away. We have lost too much already. We have drifted through the dark for generations. Every person here carries the memory of the home we were forced to leave. We are not enemies. We are not here to start a war. We only want our place in the worlds again. For a moment, the High Sentinel said nothing. Then its lights brightened. They have chosen destruction, the voice declared. Prepare to fire. Evan gasped. Weapons charging. Full capacity. Mia whispered. If they fire that, we cannot survive. Jonah turned to Nora. What do we do? But Nora was already moving. Her mind raced. She remembered the barriers they broke, the patterns she studied, the small cracks the council never saw. The High Sentinel was powerful, but it followed strict rules. Too strict. She spoke with sudden clarity. Their weapon takes time to aim. It locks on the largest target first. That means us. If we move close, right under its main array, it will not be able to complete the lock. Cannot fire straight down. Evan blinked. You want to fly toward it? Yes, Nora said. Right into its blind point. Mia hesitated, then nodded. Engines can handle a short burst. I will give you everything. Jonah gave a quick breath. It is risky, but it might work. Nora opened the fleet channel. All ships, listen. We will move forward. Do not break formation. Stay together. We make our stand here. We do not run. We do not bow. We are human, and we are going home. Dozens of voices answered her, brave and certain. The horizon surged forward with a roar of engines. The council ships reacted at once, circling, firing warning blasts, but none hit the core of the fleet. The horizon pushed faster, heading straight toward the High Sentinel. The great ship's lights flickered as it tried to complete its weapon lock. Evan shouted, almost in range of its blind point. The High Sentinel's voice thundered, stop your advance. You are moving into restricted space. But Nora did not stop. The horizon shot forward, slipping just under the giant glowing array. Evan's eyes widened. They cannot fire. We are too close. The smaller council ships panicked, pulling back to avoid the blast radius. The ring around humanity broke. Jonah cried out, the path is open. Nora did not waste a second. Fleet, move. Straight past them. Full speed. Engines roared across the human ships. They rushed forward, slipping through the broken formation. The High Sentinel tried to reposition, but the human fleet was already moving past it. Mia reported with joy in her voice, we are clear. We are fully clear. Earth appeared on the screen. A blue world, soft and bright, wrapped in white clouds. Jonah stared at it with tears in his eyes. Home. We made it. After all these years. We made it. The human fleet slowed as it approached orbit. No more council ships blocked their way. No more warnings came. The High Sentinel stayed behind, watching but unable to act. Nora stood at the window, silent. Evan spoke softly. What now? Nora smiled, calm and sure. Now we return. Now we rebuild. Now we show the worlds that humanity rises not through fear, but through heart. The fleet drifted over the blue horizon of Earth. Generations of exile were over. Humanity had returned. And they had returned with fire. Not the fire of destruction, but the fire of hope, strength, and unbroken spirit.